Hey, what is up everybody? It's Animac here for Anime Uproar, and this was unbelievable. Deku has ascended to the level of a quirk god as he uses all his quirks together to defy the laws of physics. Deku is pushing the limits of what is physically possible, and time and space are bending to his will. But All For One and Shigaraki are not done yet, and their quirks are about to return. When that happens, the clash between Deku and Shigaraki / All For One will turn into a clash of gods. And after that, the world will never be the same again, so let's get into it. You guys know the drill. If you enjoy our MHA content and you want to see more in the future, leave a quick like and comment right now. And if you're new to the channel, or maybe you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, remember that subscribing is completely free and it really helps me out a lot. Finally, this video will of course contain MHA manga spoilers, so please proceed with caution. You have been warned. In the previous chapter, we had that crazy final quirk reveal for Deku. The name of the second user's quirk was officially translated as Transmission in the Viz translation, which is the same name that it had been given in the unofficial translation. However, the unofficial translation for the new chapter is now referring to the quirk as Gear Shift, so we will have to see if anything changes with the Viz naming. Until then though, I will refer to the quirk as Transmission. In the last chapter, we also had confirmation that Tomura Shigaraki, aka Tenko Shimura, is still in there somewhere, meaning that All For One still hasn't been able to completely unify the new body under his command. This is an important piece of information that we can't forget, because it will definitely become relevant again later. We also had the second user saying that Shigaraki must be defeated in 5 minutes or else the entire world will be destroyed. So there does seem to be a timer on how long Deku can maintain his current godly levels of power. Finally, in the previous chapter we learned some specifics about how the final quirk works, including its ability to change the speed of everything that the user touches, including himself. Transmission combined with the other quirks like One For All was able to give Deku the upper hand against Shigaraki, and in this latest chapter, Deku's domination of the battlefield continues. The new chapter starts off with a flashback to many years earlier, back when the second user of One For All was still among the living. In the middle of a war-torn city, All For One, who was still in his prime back then, is holding the second user by the neck and choking him, similarly to how Shigaraki was holding Bakugo by the neck and choking him in chapter 360. The All For One persona in the present time can't comprehend why Deku was able to create such overpowered attacks using the second user's quirk, because he remembers this quirk very differently. All For One remembers Transmission as being a pathetic little pea-shooter quirk that was only able to control the speed of small objects. The second user could control small objects and launch them at his opponents, but that was basically the full extent of his power. The second user was nothing but a tiny little bug to All For One, and he successfully squished that bug many generations ago. So why is this happening now? Why is Deku suddenly capable of comfortably overpowering Shigaraki in his final form, and why is he able to use the second user's quirk in ways that he himself was never able to do? Well, we of course know the answer to this question. Just like every single quirk that belonged to a former One For All user and was later inherited by Deku, Transmission grew stronger due to the effect of One For All. One For All is, after all, a stockpiling quirk, and it has been stockpiling power for many decades and generations. And as One For All became stronger, so did all of the quirks that had been residing inside it, including Transmission. And not only is Transmission itself stronger, but Deku is also able to use combo quirks, such as using Transmission and One For All at the same time, or Transmission and Fa-Jin at the same time, and so on. The end result of all of this is something completely different from what All For One remembers. The raw, stockpiled power of One For All combining with Transmission packs enough power to bend even the laws of physics. And this is showcased in several phenomenal panels that feature Deku absolutely outclassing Shigaraki on the battlefield, both in terms of speed and in terms of raw physical power. Deku is even able to launch a quintuple Detroit Smash at the villain, basically Detroit smashing him 5 different times in a matter of seconds. Now, Shigaraki / All For One believes that he can counterattack by predicting where Deku will attack next, even though Deku's movements are now too fast for him to actually see. But just when the villain thinks that he has it figured out, Deku suddenly switches into low gear, and he abruptly stops moving despite the fact that he had just been moving extremely quickly a moment ago. The second user explains that transmission allows him to change his speed while ignoring inertia, meaning that the speed of Deku's movements is literally beyond the laws of physics. He is actually able to change the speed of things on a cellular level, including the cells of his own body. So that means that our normal understanding of things like inertia, momentum, acceleration, and deceleration simply don't apply anymore. Deku then proceeds to showcase the absolutely amazing ability to smoothly combine all of his different quirks in order to absolutely dominate Shigaraki / All For One. Deku is using Danger Sense to pinpoint Shigaraki's location, even as he is using Smokescreen to completely obscure Shigaraki's vision. He then uses Float to rise up into the air, and he does this while also using Black Whip to reel Shigaraki in. Finally, he uses One For All, Fajin, and Transmission Overdrive at the same time to deliver a devastating assault on Shigaraki, as every single user of One For All throughout history comes together through their quirk factors in order to take down their common enemy, All For One. This was actually a freaking epic moment in the chapter, and one of the most hype moments in the entire manga. All the vestiges coming together to support the one who is destined to unlock the full potential of One For All and finally defeat All For One, Izuku Midoriya. As all the former users place their faith in Deku and in his unlimited determination, Deku declares that he will not allow All For One to hurt anyone else. All For One / Shigaraki begins to accept that he doesn't stand a chance against this new Deku. At least not until he can get the use of all of his quirks back. In this current situation, with his quirks being erased and with his body being trapped within the floating UA compound, All For One cannot unlock the true potential of Shigaraki's new body. And after all this time of trying to create the perfect body, after all those experiments and sacrifices that he and Ujiko had made through many generations, this is of course an extremely frustrating situation for All For One. But that is when something else begins to happen. Shigaraki's body suddenly begins to undergo some sort of hulkification as his muscles seemingly inflate and expand rapidly. As Aizawa notices that the villain is still up to something, All For One reveals that he still has a chance to win. And then the final panel on the final page shows Spinner and those mutant quirk villains that he is leading. And you're probably thinking, okay, Spinner, so what? Don't tell me Spinner is supposed to be All For One's only hope for succeeding. But this is not the Spinner we used to know. As we learned in chapter 353, he seems to have gained some sort of gigantification quirk from All For One in the lead up to the final war arc. And so he also looks like he turned into Bane or the Hulk or something. And at the end of the chapter, we are all left to wonder what exactly Horikoshi has planned for us with this whole Spinner thing. The Hulkification is definitely a major clue, so let's look into that first. We know that Spinner and his villain group have mutant-type quirks, and some mutant-type quirks are immune to Aizawa's erasure. This is particularly true of mutant-type quirks that just give their users something simple like permanent superhuman physical strength. If the villain has a mutant-type quirk that makes him super strong or super quick as a permanent feature of the quirk, then that person won't be affected by Aizawa's erasure. So, it is possible that All For One found some sort of mutant quirk that is immune to erasure, and it is this quirk that gives its user superhuman strength and a giant hulking appearance. It seems that All For One may have been saving this quirk as some sort of last resort, and now that he sees that Deku is stronger than him, All For One is forced to use this last resort. Showing a Spinner could have been a clue that All For One also has the same mutant quirk that Spinner does, and this quirk may be immune to erasure. But alternatively, All for One may just be planning to summon Spinner and the other mutant Quirk villains to the floating UA compound so that they can back him up, since Aizawa's quirk wouldn't work on them. And if these villains can find a way to get to the UA, like for example if they can find Kurogiri and get him to warp them to the UA, they could potentially reach Monoma and force him to break eye contact with Shigaraki / All for One. If this were to happen even for a moment, then all bets are off and all options are once again back on the table. I've said this before, but I do believe that All for One / Shigaraki will eventually find a way to break Monoma's eye contact and regain the use of all his quirks. This will give us the opportunity to witness both Deku and Shigaraki / All for One fighting at their absolute strongest. And honestly, as shonen fans, we wouldn't expect anything less from the final climactic battle of the entire series. With how strong Deku just proved that he is, the only way that Shigaraki can continue to challenge him is by regaining the use of all his quirks. If he can't do that, this battle will be over very quickly. So from a narrative perspective, it seems clear to me that Shigaraki has to find a way to stop Erasure. The only question is how exactly that is going to happen. Will Spinner and the other mutant quirk users manage to infiltrate the UA and stop Aizawa and Monoma? Or does Shigaraki / All for One himself have a secret mutant type quirk that he has been hiding as a last resort? Or will Shigaraki maybe find some other type of power-up that will allow him to regain the upper hand in battle? We will have to wait and see, but I am fully expecting to see both the strongest hero and the strongest villain in history fighting each other at their absolute strongest at full power at some point in the near future. Now, we have to talk about Deku's evolution and the fact that he has seemingly become a quirk god. Now, of course, I don't mean an omnipotent creator god. I mean someone similar to a god from, say, Japanese mythology or Greek mythology. Someone with powers so incredible that they defy the laws of physics that everyone else has to abide by. As this chapter revealed, Deku already has reached that point. But I don't think that this is the end of his evolution. I've been promoting this theory in many videos, but again, I have to go back to Quirk Singularity. Deku using all 7 of his quirks against Shigaraki was amazing, and it is certainly something that we haven't seen before from Deku, at least not to this epic extent. Deku was still using 7 different quirks. He was using them in combination with each other, he was doing a masterful job making them work together, but they are still separate quirks. One for All is not called One for All for nothing. The ultimate evolution of the One for All quirk will be the fusion of all 7 quirks into a single overpowered super quirk that will constitute Deku's Quirk Singularity. Deku will attain a new Quirk Singularity form. The quirks will merge seamlessly into one super quirk, and that is how Deku will ultimately defeat Shigaraki / All for One. And make no mistake, even though Shigaraki recently attained his new Apex Legend form, he still can't use his quirks. So just as All for One implied, Shigaraki's body still hasn't reached its full potential. There will come a time when Shigaraki regains his quirks and attains yet another evolution. A time when he too becomes a quirk god. And when that occurs, the only one who will be able to stop him is Quirk Singularity Deku. Deku, who not only uses 7 different quirks in quick succession, but Deku who uses one overpowered super quirk that is the fusion of all of his quirks into a single power. That at least is my ultimate theory for how this battle will end. It will be a clash of quirk gods. Definitely let me know if you agree or disagree down in the comments below. Also, why was Spinner brought up at the end of this chapter, and what role is he about to play? Finally, why did the second user say that Deku has a 5-minute time limit, and how is this limitation going to play out in the battle? Don't forget to leave your feedback down in the comments below. I always love hearing from you. You guys know the drill. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more MHA content in the future, leave a quick like and comment. It only takes you a second, but it helps me out a lot with that YouTube algorithm. And of course, if you haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a big favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. Subscribing is completely free, but it's a very real way of directly supporting the channel. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Anime Uproar. Big thank you to all of our Anime Uproar patrons for making videos like this one possible. Special thank you to Trucker Tim, a disciple of Lord Twigo himself. And I can't forget all of our The One tier patrons, including Alpha Sigma, Pate Heffa, The Toasted Chi, Corey McGowan, Owen, Taylor, and Anime S Code M. Finally, thank you to all of our other patrons, including Pro Hero tier patrons, the one and only Gilgamesh, Angel Cruz, Alicia Octor, Fatboy Games, Kaido Might Be a Duck, Alivania, Sandy, and The School Bus. If you enjoy our videos and you feel that they provide value to you, consider supporting us on Patreon or by becoming a channel member. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys!